Part 111. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1115. Inside the castle. The city wall is cracked and the pavilions are mottled. Under the tree in front of the flowers, a short-haired blonde girl is sweating. She is holding an unbladed knight's blunt sword and slashing in front of her meticulously. Split, tease, chop, lift, cross, stab, block. She practiced the most basic movements over and over again. The heavy sword made of pure iron seemed to be an unbearable burden for her at a young age. She had gauze wrapped around her fingers, and there was a lot of blood on the gauze. Her young and delicate skin could not withstand the severe friction when swinging the sword, so it was worn out. Moreover, her wrist holding the sword was red and swollen. Every time she swung the heavy sword, the girl's arms trembled slightly due to pain and exhaustion. The girl didn't know that her every move was under the watchful eyes of Uncle GM and Aunt War Knight, so she gritted her teeth and practiced for 2 hours with sweat dripping. Yilin pops up the barrier, and in the eyes of outsiders, the two of them are almost invisible. "Have you always practiced like this before?" Yilin pointed at the silly girl in the castle courtyard strangely. It was obviously not possible to practice like this. It would be good if you don't destroy people through training. "Is there a problem?" Miriam asked with a serious face, but after a moment, her face became a little more frustrated. Obviously now, she could see that there were big problems with the way she practiced swordsmanship when she was young, not only in terms of efficiency, but also in efficiency. "It's low, and it's easy to get hurt all over." Miriam nodded helplessly, "Yes." Yilin's lips twitched, "Quite honest." "Miriam, Rin, I don't think you are complimenting me." "You can think so." Yilin smiled. When the two men and women were bickering in the barrier, an old butler came from the corridor holding a delicate tray with clean handkerchiefs neatly folded and a glass in a goblet of clear water. "Master Pendragon, it's time to rest." "Okay." The heavy sword was unable to escape and hit the courtyard, creating a thick cloud of dust. The girl picked up a clean handkerchief with her gauze-covered hand and wiped the sweat from her face. "I'll practice for a while longer." "Okay, Master Pendragon. Let's talk about it after dinner." "Okay, Master, I'll prepare dinner for you." After the old housekeeper left respectfully, the girl picked up the heavy sword from the ground and began to swing the sword meticulously again. "Why did he call you master?" Yilin asked curiously. Miriam did not hide anything. In the history of the Pendragon family, only men can inherit the title and family property. However, my parents died young and did not have time to give birth to a son for the Pendragon family. Therefore, he was raised as Pendragon's descendant. Just to get back the lost ideal land. Yes. Yilin touched her chin. "Actually, I have an idea. Could it be that your parents left too early and didn't have time to tell you that in fact, there is more than this way to regain your family's lost treasures? For example, buying them with money?" "Oh, don't mind, I just think that in a normal society, money-making ability is the most unpretentious skill," Yilin casually said. "An easier way." Miriam was stunned, her brows were furrowed, her eyes were red and aggrieved, as if she was holding back tears. After holding it in for a while, Miriam still didn't cry. She was strong and patient. "Fortunately you didn't cry, otherwise I should have wondered if there was something wrong with me." Yilin thought in her mind and changed the subject. "Anyway, your family's glory is also found, and kept properly. Don't mention the past. But I am very curious. If you practice like this, can you really practice it for 10 years? The next you?" Miriam closed her eyes and recalled the past. After a while, she opened her eyes and nodded. "I remember when I was a child, a teacher wearing a mask suddenly appeared and taught me how to swordsmanship. Since then, my swordsmanship has improved by leaps and bounds." Halfway through, Miriam looked shocked. She subconsciously touched the token on her face and looked at the cook with incredible eyes. Teacher, she has beautiful long golden hair and wears a pair of black mask. Yilin suddenly realized, it turns out that it was you who taught yourself. Miriam shook her head vigorously. She still couldn't believe this terrible fact. This is impossible. Nothing is impossible. Yilin's eyes flickered and she pushed Myrian behind her. Go, teacher. Myrian was pushed out of the barrier. She was helpless to face her former youthful self. Little Myrian was wary of the sudden appearance of her big sister. Who are you? Memories of her youth came to her mind, and great Myrian sighed softly. Your sword is wrong. When Xiao Myrian heard this, she was stunned for a moment, then stubbornly shook her head. It's impossible. Great Myrian easily snatched the blunt-edged heavy sword and stood in front of her with a heavy weight. Let me teach you the way to victory. See chapter 741 for details. Lend me your holy grail. Yilin witnessed the meeting of two Myrians from different time and space with her own eyes, and many thoughts flashed through her mind. Since the effect already exists, there must be a cause that leads to the birth of this effect. After eliminating all impossibility, the remaining one, no matter how outrageous or incredible, it will that be the correct answer. No wonder the scene of little Myrian practicing her sword seems vaguely familiar to me. This is the biggest mystery left behind by Xiao 11. Yilin raised her head, looked at the sky, and murmured to herself, this is a closed loop, right? My goddess! Far away in Qingcheng. Xiao 11, who was drinking milk, smiled slightly. She seemed to hear Yilin's questions and the helplessness in Yilin's words across thousands of mountains and rivers. Yeah, 10. Zioxi closed her eyes. Miriam stayed in the castle. No, to be precise, it should be a return. This is both her home and not her home. After secretly bidding farewell to Myrian, Yilin left here under the latter's reluctant eyes. Where should we go? After vaguely trying to figure out the truth about the closed loop, Yilin didn't want to go back to see Xiao 11. He needed some peace and quiet. This is a closed loop. The world is a closed loop. Unknowingly, Yilin came to the outskirts of London. At this time, London was still a prosperous city, with domed retro buildings and skyscrapers standing side by side. The sharp contrast between modern and retro styles gave people a strong visual impact. Yilin stood on the hands of Big Ben and looked down at the city, inexplicably feeling that this perspective looked familiar. Looking back, Yilin burst into laughter. He had bombed similar buildings in Gotham City back then. No wonder he missed this place so much. Under the seemingly peaceful modern city, there is an undercurrent. In his field of vision, the apostles in the Tower of War server were like glowing dots on the map, bright and eye-catching. Not enough. Yilin shook his head. He had no nostalgia, let alone blew up Big Ben so frantically. He came to the outskirts of London. This is one of the three holy places of the Magician Association, the headquarters of the clock tower. Beside the turnoff into the clock tower, there is a rusty road sign with a sentence written on it, Eternal Junction Line. There is also a line of small words below that you need to get closer to see clearly, Inherit mystery as knowledge forever. Returning to her old place made Yilin sigh with joy. He recalled his experience of further training in the clock tower and was ready to go in for a walk. He had read a lot of magic books back then, and although he had already mastered them now, there might be some unique books that had not been lost in the clock tower 10 years ago, so it would be a good idea to go in and take a look. Regarding unfamiliar knowledge, Yilin has always maintained an attitude of don't refuse anyone who comes. After taking a few steps and preparing to skillfully sneak into the clock tower, he suddenly turned back and returned the way he came. I saw Yilin gently rubbing the handwriting on the road sign with her fingers, saying to herself, this seems to be the handwriting left by the founder of the clock tower, a disciple of King Solomon. King Solomon, Connor D. Solomon, Rin thought for a moment, then moved her finger away and entered the clock tower. Whether he is an administrator or a great magician, his various identities mean that his strength far exceeds that of any king in the tower. He quickly analyzed the hidden barrier of the clock tower and entered the library without alerting anyone. Sure enough, there were many books inside that had been lost 10 years later and were still kept in the clock tower. Yulin sat at the top of the spiral staircase, legs crossed, holding a stack of ancient books openly, absorbing knowledge with relish. The magic system seems a bit backward to Yulin now, but some of the spells, the manufacturing methods of magic rituals, and some of the taboo rituals that can be recorded have brought some inspiration to Yulin. He took the essence and discarded the dross, and wrote part of the essence into codes to fill the void in the infinite throne. I stayed in the clock tower for half a year. In the past 6 months, Yulin carefully sorted out the magic system of the clock tower. He even secretly learned how to create an artificial magic eye. The novel knowledge brought Yulin long-lost happiness. Most of the books of the Magicians' Association during this period are relatively well preserved. Among the 3 major associations, Clock Tower's philosophy is biased towards innovation, hesitancy focuses on human body modification and strives to restore magic of the gods. As for Atlas, the academy is the gathering place for alchemists. Yulin closed a book called Simple Application of Displacement Magic. The author is a descendant of the Darius family. He thought that he was a little tired of staying here and was going to change places to walk around and relax. Wandering Sea, Atlas Academy, well, let's just go and have a look. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Shueshi. Chapter 1116. 2113. July. Hot summer day. Pendragon Castle. Little Miriam wore a bulging and white bandage on her chest and went into battle lightly. She is carefully reviewing the teacher's teachings. After receiving guidance, she realized that her hard training in the past had gone in the wrong direction, and now she was finally back on track. Even under the high temperature, Great Myrian was still wearing black clothes and a mask. She didn't say any nonsense except pointing out little Myrian's mistakes. At this time, Myrian turned her head and looked outside the house. Without hesitation, she jumped out of the castle by stepping on the high wall of the castle. The girl who was sweating wiped the sweat from her forehead, looked back at the place where the teacher disappeared, and pursed her lips. This teacher is good at everything, except that he is mysterious, weird, and occasionally exudes a nice smell. She couldn't tell what it smelled like, but she always felt that it smelled particularly fragrant and made her hungry very quickly. Miriam came outside the castle. The castle was surrounded by a small forest. In the shade, under the shade of a tree, the cook waved to him expressionlessly, as if to say, "Come here." In front of the rice cooker, there was a pot in which the delicious food was cooking. Miriam wiped her mouth and took 2 steps forward. But when she was about to walk to the pot, she frowned and swept out the sword at a speed that could not be seen clearly with the naked eye. The cooker was beheaded. Click, click, click. The decapitated Yulin was lying on the ground twitching, but not even a drop of blood flowed out from the severed end of the neck. Under the skin were precise gears and metal structures. Alchemy doll. Myrian recognized the true form of decapitated Lin, pursed her lips and looked behind a nearby tree. Xiaomi, you are very ruthless. Do you know that it took me several days to make this alchemy doll? Miriam sat sullenly in front of the pot. He took the initiative to pick up the bowl and spoon that had been washed and placed next to him, and filled himself a full bowl. In fact, what she didn't tell Yulin was that she didn't allow anything to pretend to be a cook, not even an alchemy doll. 17 days. After Myrian ate 10 bowls of fragrant beef stew in one go, she spoke a number stiffly. Yulin scratched his head. If he remembered correctly, it had been exactly 17 days since the last time he cooked for Miriam. Myrian originally wanted to hold up the corresponding number of fingers and use body language to express how long it was, but then she thought that 10 fingers were not enough to count, so she could only eat the stew angrily and talk to Yulin. There was no eye contact, as if she wanted to use this action to express Yulin's anger at leaving her alone for 17 days. Am I not studying at Atlas Academy? Yulin didn't notice at all how shameful it was for him to confuse the two concepts of sneaking in and further education. He used to secretly leave lunch boxes for Miriam when cooking, just like delivering takeout, but now the two finally had time to sit down and eat and drink together, and Yulin talked about what he had seen and heard at Atlas Academy. Strictly speaking, Atlas Academy is located in the Tower of Famine Zone server, which is equivalent to entering another zone. Atlas College is located at the foot of the Atlas Mountains in Egypt. The mountain wall is hollowed out, and their college is built in a cave. Inside the academy, there is no sunlight all year round, but magic equipment is used to provide lighting. Yulin sneaked in and consulted many classics. One of them recorded in detail the 7 great weapons that Atlas Academy once had. However, according to legend, they had not been used since the Age of Gods, and not many of them could be passed down. The current Atlas Academy is more like a vegetable market for alchemists from all over the world to communicate. Different races and different languages are chattering in the academy. Alchemy is divided into many schools: academic school, data school, technical school, laboratory school, retro school, fantasy school, and so on. But the core idea of alchemy is transformation. They are committed to converting one thing into another thing, but this conversion follows a certain pattern. By the way, according to Yulin's current understanding, Seeing Phase School of Alchemy, which can be made with both hands and making large and small gold anywhere, should be classified as a fantasy alchemist in a broad sense, but Seeing Phase skills are obviously obtained from the other world, which is a bit different from the alchemy used in this world. Different paths lead to the same goal. The ideal highest state of alchemy is to create something out of nothing or to transform the whole into one thing. I don't know whether it is true or not. They have recorded some conceptual weapons in history, which are able to combine lifespan and emotions. Spirit, emotion, and other illusory things are transformed into substantial attack power. For example, there is a lost weapon called Yashao, which can convert lifespan into deadly toxins. The more lifespans converted, the stronger the toxin will be, and ultimately the effect will be death. In the past, Yulin would have thought it was quite mysterious, but looking at his current state of mind, their ideal concepts and weapons are not unachievable utopias. No, many of the apostles' special skills or props can achieve similar results. Effect. Studying secretly for half a year at Atlas College made Yulin more convinced of the truth: different paths lead to the same destination. As long as he can understand all the principles of the world, then his existence will become a universal converter, and his infinite throne can evolve any form of power. Yulin will not doubt whether she is on the right path. He has no time to think about whether the path of infinity can allow him to become a god-level existence, because if he can't survive this time, everything will be empty talk. Once you lose, everything will come back again. This is Yulin's thought at the moment. In addition, what interests Yulin the most in Atlas Academy is the alchemy doll. The alchemy doll can be said to be the most interesting branch of alchemy. Some alchemists even carry alchemy maids with them, which look just like ordinary people on the surface and are practical. The alchemy doll he finally made was cut off by Miriam's sword when he saw it. Yulin looked at the wreckage of the once named Yulin doll number 1 and secretly felt pain. When parting, Yulin gave a very high evaluation of the talent of little Myrian in front of great Myrian, which was a different way of praising Myrian's awesomeness. Myrian readily accepted Yulin's statement: well, she is really smart. After bidding farewell to Miriam, half an hour later, Yulin arrived at the vast sea without stopping. There are no clouds in the sky, and the blue sea is sometimes calm and sometimes rough. As far as the eye can see, there are several lonely islands sitting on the sea. Yulin took out a small notebook and started recording. July 14, 2113. I started looking for Wandering Sea in the Nordic waters. The Wandering Sea is known as the moving stone coffin in the industry. There is a record in the clock tower about the appearance of the Wandering Sea. It is a mountain moving on the sea. Legend has it that the founder of Hesitant Sea was a vampire. I do not believe. Forget it, let's look for it first. To find a moving mountain in the vast Nordic Sea, as far as the Arctic Sea, in such a large area, for Yilin at this moment, the difficulty is not only to find a needle in a haystack, but at least to follow 1,000 horses. About the same as a donkey. After searching for half an hour, Yilin gave up the serious search method. He slapped his thigh. Why did I forget my identity? He is the administrator. What can an administrator do? Take advantage of the permissions. Because I am too upright, I will inadvertently leave my identity as a dog behind. He still looks for the light spots in his field of vision. Enhance. Enhance again. A circle of 1 and 0 data streams emerged from the depths of Yilin's pupils. 10 seconds later. Yilin found it. In the vast sea, there is a point. That is the apostolic light. Really? After the national recruitment, Yilin remembered clearly that in the guild rankings of the Tower of War server, there was the name Wandering Sea. Being able to establish a guild and gather a group of senior apostles in a short period of time, Yilin did not believe that there were no senior apostles in Wandering Sea. Just simple probability. Following the light spot, Yilin headed north. As the latitude changes, the surrounding temperature drops sharply, and the visibility in front of Yilin drops rapidly. There was thick mist floating around. The small islands in the distance became magical lights and shadows. Suddenly, Yilin kept changing her position. After moving her position again, the light spots in her eyes disappeared. Yilin was stunned for a moment, but he quickly took a few steps back and noticed something strange. Enchantment. Yilin moved little by little. Finally, he moved to where the fog was thickest and stretched out his hand forward. He touched the barrier. The law of freedom deconstruction. He did not rush to trigger the defense of the barrier, but analyzed the structure of the Wandering Sea barrier through deconstruction. After spending a little effort, Yilin solved it, easily passed through the barrier, and slipped in. It's as easy as a fish entering water. It not only passes through the membrane, but also ensures the integrity of the membrane. Well, not difficult. After crossing the barrier, there was still thick fog in front of us, but at the end of the thick fog, a majestic mountain peak like a natural moat was looming. After the barrier, there are mountains and seas that are connected together in the fog. Bingo, found it? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1117. They are active in darkness. The trapped beast endures hunger. SHHH, mystery is around. Net name, Shirley Ma. Itai City. Master Ma, who runs a hotpot restaurant, updated his signature on his personal homepage. In the darkness, he silently lit a cigarette. The flickering light of the fire reflected his face, which was full of vicissitudes of life, into sharp edges and pits. He stared into the night. The darkness stared back at him. In the dark place, 2 lines of words appeared strangely. Do you believe in God? Yes/no. Took 2 puffs. Master Ma stubbed out the cigarette butt on the wooden table. The remaining heat of the cigarette burnt a black mark on the wooden table. Mom, I didn't expect it to be my turn. He pressed yes viciously. 2114. Yilin received an email in her anonymous mailbox. Sent by Molly. She asked in the letter, our paper is about to be submitted. Uncle G, What do you think the name of this article should be? P.S. Grandpa has been thinking about you all day long. Yulin thought for a while and replied, to the sky that mankind will eventually lose. Molly in front of the screen was stunned. Uncle G's reply was a little too fast. Where do you put this memorization question bank? Have you thought carefully about it? Dissatisfied, Molly typed on the keyboard. Molly, are you too literary? The painful literary style of the last century, as expected of you, Uncle G. Yulin, are you okay? Molly, should I add a translator at the beginning? Oh my god, on that day we humans lost our air rights? I really want to kick God's ass with my boot. Yulin, I think that's okay. Molly, forget it, I should have known better than to ask you. My grandpa asked you when you would come back. He was bored and stayed at home with me all day. Uncle G, please quickly show your magical power and ask my grandpa take it away. End the call. What era did he grow up in? Molly closed the computer angrily. She rolled on the bed for a while, thinking carefully about Uncle G's words. She didn't know why, but the more she thought about it, the more she felt that it was inexplicably fitting that this kind of mysterious paper was paired with an old-fashioned title of pain. Am I infected by Uncle G? Molly pinched her face in confusion. She turned on the computer again and began to revise the paper. January 5, 2114. A paper that does not look like a paper was officially published with the secret efforts of many parties. To the sky that mankind will eventually lose. Human beings have spent thousands of years conquering the sky, but on this day, the sky once again became a forbidden area for gods. June 2116. The World Heart Association released data. Since 2111, the number of patients who die from sudden cardiac death of unknown causes has increased by about 5% every year. But among them, the proportion of sudden cardiac death among teenagers younger than 30 years old has increased by more than 50% every year than before. A regrettable result. Therefore, the World Heart Association calls on young people to stay up late less, indulge less in sex, smoke and drink less, and be happy for you, me, and him. Same year. July. Pendragon Castle. The girl and the woman in black are competing with swords. The two figures were tumbling in the yard. But rather than saying it was a sword fight, it was more like the woman in black giving the girl moves. It was Great Myrian, and Little Myrian. They met because of fate. Big Myrian held up a branch and easily blocked every sword strike from Little Myrian. Little Myrian's sword is a knight's sword with an open edge. Blown hair and broken hair, unstoppable. However, she couldn't break the teacher's sword. After a while, Little Myrian lay panting on the ground, exhausted. I don't have anything to teach you anymore. Heh, it's time to go. Miriam looked at her young self, stared at it for a moment, and then said something. Neither of them noticed that when Great Myrian said these words, there was actually a complicated feeling of reluctance. Ah! Lowly Myrian, who was lying on the ground, raised her head and said ah in surprise. She was stunned. It was too sudden. The old housekeeper died suddenly of an unknown heart attack last year, and the only family member around her was her teacher. The elders in the clan, from childhood to adulthood, only regarded her as Master Pendragon and raised her as Pendragon's heir. They only pay attention to their swordsmanship, and don't know whether they are happy or tired. In the past 2 years, she and her teacher had been getting along day and night, almost treating each other as her mother, but suddenly, the teacher said these words, which seemed to mean goodbye. No. Little Myrian gritted her teeth, Teacher, I'm still far away. Look, I can't even defeat you holding a branch. I'm still too weak. Great Myrian stepped forward and touched her head. In a daze, she remembered that she had been touched by her teacher in this way. This is a cycle. It's a cycle of despair. One day, the girl in front of her will grow up as she wishes, and will truly understand what it means to be invincible. She will be favored by the world, and there will be 12 knights of the Round Table gathered around her who are willing to protect her. She will also be there that day, in order to find the glory of the family, arrive in the mysterious East and meet that person. They will meet again, and she will experience everything she has experienced with Rin, and she will also be able to taste the powerlessness and despair she once tasted. Everything will happen again, and one day she will become who she is now. Then, cycle all this again. Miriam lowered her head. She suddenly felt that this was a wonderful fate, a strange fate for her and herself to meet. Only movies dare to do this. But she experienced a cycle firsthand. Little Miriam saw that the teacher was silent, and she thought that her words could not move the teacher. She quickly raised her scarred hands. Hey, teacher, look, my posture of holding the sword is wrong, my breathing is very rapid, I can't keep up with the teacher's movements at all, there are so many things I can learn. Teacher, Miriam doesn't know how to survive without you. No, you are wrong. Miriam shook her head affirmatively, no one knows better than me. You are more worthy of the sword than anyone else. Finished. Miriam made a move with her right hand, and the castle shook violently. An ancient sword buried deep in the ground trembled, penetrated the layers of stone walls, flew into the air, and then fell like a meteor and was inserted between the two of them. That is the treasure buried deep underground by the Pendragon family, the Holy Sword. The golden Holy Sword emitted bright golden light in the sunlight. Little Miriam stared at the light flowing on the sword, dumbfounded. Miriam also looked at it, but this sword no longer belonged to her. What she said was not wrong. There is no one else in the world who is more worthy of the sword than the girl in front of him. Including her. She doesn't deserve it either. She was just the dead who abandoned her glory. Miriam smiled. Someone once said that there is no such thing as a dinner party. So, it's time to say goodbye. The girl burst into tears. She still doesn't know what her teacher looks like. She was worried about what she would do if she said goodbye today and never saw each other again in the future. One day, we will meet again. Really? Yes, in the name of night, I make an oath. On that day, I will become stronger and surpass my teacher. The girl held the holy sword. On her forehead, a hair stood up stubbornly and turned into a bunch of dull hair that would never fall down. At this moment, she officially inherited the glory of her ancestors and became the King of Knights. Remember, and never forget, your glory and pride. Miriam Artoria ex Pendragon. Yes, my teacher. The girl raised her sword high and raised her curly hair. On this day, she made a vow. She swore an oath. Never forget the glory and pride. In the name of Pendragon. The sun was shining brightly, and under the shade of the trees, a smiling man waved to Miriam from afar. It's Yiren. What's wrong? Don't want to give up. Yiren eats grilled chicken wings. For the first time, Miriam did not ask for help from Yilin. Instead, she lowered her head and was worried. Here, eat it while it's hot. I was in a hurry today and only baked 2. Yilin stuffed another grilled chicken wing into Miriam's mouth. Miriam bit down. You. Mouth full. Aren't we still alive? Yilin's smile was as warm as the spring breeze, and with the comfort of grilled chicken wings, Miriam's depression gradually eased. Will she become me one day? Maybe, maybe not. Yilin nodded first and then shook his head. Miriam was stunned. Why? Because there is no I in this world. Miriam was dumbfounded. If you hadn't met me, you wouldn't have entered the singularity of the age of gods. If you hadn't entered the singularity of the age of gods, you wouldn't have died. If you hadn't died, you wouldn't have arrived in hell. If you hadn't arrived in hell, you wouldn't have been in hell. I pushed myself to the position of night. After smoothing out the logic in one breath, Yilin stretched out an index finger. Without me, She wouldn't be you. Unless, one day, this world suddenly has an extra eye. Huh? Why are you laughing? Could it be that do you understand? Yilin was puzzled because he spoke so fast. According to the usual practice, Miriam would not be able to understand. Miriam smiled softly, she was happy. But she didn't say anything, just gnawed on the chicken wings. It's great to meet you. Delicious. Almost 3 years. Yilin finished eating the chicken wings. I have to go now. Miriam had already noticed it. The dishes this time were so perfunctory and different from usual. Yilin made a different decision than usual, which did not surprise Miriam. Over the years, Yilin has been wandering around with the district servers of the Tower of War and the Tower of Famine, working hard to use magic, alchemy, rituals, witchcraft, curses and magic potions, divine descent and other mysterious knowledge, and perfected the rules of freedom. He and Miriam spent less time together and more time apart, and the time between each cooking meal became longer and longer. Miriam's calmness surprised Yilin. He gently touched Miriam's hair, ran his fingers through the gap on her forehead, and paused for a moment. Yilin threw an exquisite badge into Miriam's hand. This is... Oh, it's nothing. Dean Wandering Sea's identity certificate. I accidentally convinced an ancient vampire, well, to convince people with virtue. He hasn't sucked blood for hundreds of years and is a bit weak. I took over Wandering Sea by the way. Now, he is the honorary dean. Yilin talked lightly about one of his insignificant deeds in the past 3 years. Remember, the path we are taking now is history, and the future that belongs to us will definitely come. Miriam nodded vigorously. When the time is right, everything in the Wandering Sea will become your strength. Miriam nodded again. Before leaving, Yilin remembered something. By the way, I took in, a few poor and confused female students. Coincidentally, they are all named, Thesha von Einsborn. Upon hearing this, Miriam felt wary and raised her eyebrows. How many? Yilin replied calmly, the total is only more than 10,000. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1118. August 21, 17. Graduation season. Molly graduated. Amorendi also fulfilled his promise and built an exclusive laboratory for Molly. It is said that Molly stared at the shiny signboard on the roof, like a tall bamboo pole, twitching at the corner of her mouth for a long time. Molly felt something was wrong with her grandpa. But she finally accepted it. Watching the little girl growing up happily running into the brand new laboratory, touching here and looking there, the two elders Yilin and Amorendi stood at the door and smiled in unison. Old Emo. After Molly left, Yilin suddenly frowned and looked at the white-haired Amorendi, finding a place to practice. Yilin has been wandering overseas for the past few years. When he came back, he noticed something. An unexpected but reasonable thing. Amorendi nodded, okay. Amorendi was eager to accept it. The two came to the snow mountain. It's a bit cold. Amorendi trembled, and soon the ice mist formed fine shards of ice on his hair and eyebrows. But he wiped his face nonchalantly, his face flushed, and he took a stance and punched his old friend. Boom. Yilin caught Amorendi's fist with one hand. Time is not forgiving. Seeing how easily Yilin received his punch, Amorendi smiled happily and said, from now on, it will be the time for you young people. After a moment of silence, Yilin smiled helplessly, this is the limit of human beings. Yes. Amorendi readily admitted. Since the past 2 years, Amorendi's health has been deteriorating. He can clearly feel that his once nearly invincible strength is declining and aging. I'm sorry, brother, Amorendi said regretfully, I can't fulfill my promise to you, so I went to kill the gods with you. Yilin shook his head, not knowing what to say. Everything he faced was history. Whether it is Morendi's aging or Morendi's weakening, this is all part of history. He not only created history, experienced history, but also witnessed history. Yilin was a little uninterested. Even if you have no enemy, you are not very good. It used to be difficult to fight, but now it is really unbeatable. The two returned to the capital. History is gradually taking a familiar shape to Yilin. This is a closed loop. Meng has grown up. Morendi has also become the granddaughter control in Yilin's impression. Although he still practices boxing every day, his mentality has become more peaceful. After Meng published that paper, she became famous throughout the country as a genius girl. The truth about the Forbidden Air Zone has received a popular scientific explanation. The public accepted this explanation. The ground network is set up. A new order is created. September 21, 17. Yilin returns to Qingcheng. Don't you have anything to ask? Xiao 11 looked at the report and saw that the administrator who had many problems in the past had become so calm after not seeing him for several years. She couldn't help but take the initiative to ask. Yilin was silent for a moment, then smiled and shook his head, no. He, hug. Yilin smiled, picked up Xiao 11, and threw her out of the window. Hum your sister and lift her up high. 2 years ago, a meteorite fell in the mountains. Zioxy said that this was the completion of the transmission of sealed data. It sounds very high-end, but Yilin knows what's going on. After inspection by brick experts, this meteorite contains organic matter that does not exist in the world today. The meteorite was cut into many parts and distributed to more than a dozen well-known domestic research institutes. After Yilin came back from abroad, she thought of this and took some time to walk around. Yilin has been gone for several months. January 21, 18. The Dawn sect began to show its traces. This is a mysterious organization. A specific group has a particular headache for it. Most of the people in the organization are ordinary people. But that's why it's difficult to deal with. Yilin was free, and Morendi sent the report to the special advisor. Yilin thought for a while and decided to intervene. He followed the line of Dawn sect and reached the west of the Sahara Desert. The ignorant believers actually built a shelter here with complete facilities, water and electricity, and a prosperous life. It is like a paradise. Yilin floated over an oasis, listening intently. Weird singing came from inside. They destroy all living beings. We save sentient beings. Ah! The great Lord of the Void, the light of dawn, the imprisoned God. We are willing to give our humble flesh and blood. We beg you to come. Bringing pain to this ignorant world. We will wake up the world. We will bring infinite dawn to this world with our blood. Embrace the dawn. The familiar singing voice awakens Yilin's memories from long ago. The entrance to the facility is decorated like a rocky hill. When Yilin fell to the ground, the scene of the oasis suddenly changed. The gloomy sky, grey clouds, everything in front of me seemed to have been stripped of all colors and turned into a black and white photo. A man with pale skin and slightly curly hair was sitting cross-legged in front of a rock. There was a stack of tarot cards in front of him. Several of them were facing up, and the divination ceremony was halfway through. Want to divine? Old friend. Yilin sat opposite Gu Tianqing. You're really good at hiding. My divination tells me that today, at this moment, at this place, there will be a destined and wonderful encounter. Gu Tianqing smiled slightly. Finally, I've waited for it. After the fight in hell, the two returned to 2111 with different identities and different camps. When they met for the first time in many years, there was no smell of gunpowder between Yilin and Gu Tianqing. On the contrary, it was exactly as Gu Tianqing had imagined. As the saying goes, it is more like a long-awaited reunion of old friends than a meeting of old enemies. Have you been patronizing and running your Shugwan cult all these years? Master Gu Yilin said calmly. Heh, stop making fun of me. Compared to you, this is just a trivial matter. Gu Tianqing put on his usual fake smile. So, what can your little trouble bring to you? Yilin asked. I'm just recreating history, Gu Tianqing said with a smile. Besides, I'm waiting for you, my old friend. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Yilin's smile became warmer and warmer. No, Gu Tianqing shook his head firmly. You are waiting, and so am I. You have doubts, and I am also looking for a way out. In fact, you and I are both explorers, the same type of people. Yilin was silent. Draw 3, as usual. Gu Tianqing smiled and stretched out the stack of tarot cards in front of Yilin. Yilin drew 3 cards. Oh, after Gu Tianqing read the cards, she exclaimed in surprise and asked, what do you want to ask? Yilin, I want to find someone. Gu Tianqing, oh, the death card must be a dead person. Yilin nodded, not bothering to do Tai Chi. Yes. Gu Tianqing pretended to sigh. Alas, what a pity. If you do this, it will destroy the poignancy of death itself. Gu Tianqing said matter-of-factly, the reason why she is so important to you is because you witnessed her death, but once you let her, she is resurrected. Is she still the same person in your heart? Go away. Don't do this to me. Believe it or not, I'll kill you right now. Yilin rolled her eyes. Allah, your temper is still unpredictable. Gu Tianqing covered her chest. The smile on her face did not change, but she deliberately made a gesture of I'm so scared, which made Yilin's teeth itch and she wanted to hit him. Very well, then, I want to negotiate a deal with you. Yilin, say. I can try to reverse that person's death, but you must give me something. Gu Tianqing smiled slightly, and he gently handed an ordinary mask into Yilin's hands. Give me that person's death. The overflowing authority was divided into a little bit that was insignificant and not enough to affect the direction of history, and lent it to me. What you up to? It's nothing. Gu Tianqing smoothed her slightly curled bangs on her forehead, her smile unchanged. I just want to ensure my destined death again, that's all. To put it simply, I want to kill myself. You don't have to. Suppressing a laugh, I know this is ridiculous, but I can tell you with certainty that without my intervention, I may not have died there. Then, I will disappear now. Yilin thought for a while and handed the mask back to Gu Tianqing's hand. Gu Tianqing carefully put away the mask. I don't think we need to exchange contact information before leaving, Gu Tianqing said with a smile. You know how to find me, you just need to follow the trail of Shugwang. By the way, because of our many years of friendship, for your sake, I think I should give you a little advice. Gu Tianqing pointed her finger and lowered her voice. Is that person of yours really trustworthy? Yilin was lost in thought. Yilin recorded in her diary. January 31, 2118. I found Gu Tianqing. Gu Tianqing is about to become a death knight. I don't know why. I used to want to beat him every day, but now I don't think so anymore. I suddenly seem to have lost the motivation to work hard. Maybe it's because I'm tired. Everything I cared about before, but after witnessing history with my own eyes, I found that the truth behind it all was ridiculously small. Nothing to doubt. Because, I already knew it. The critical day is July 8, 2118. I may be witnessing the turning point of the world. Because that day, I will be born. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1119. 2118. July 8. It was an ordinary day in history. Only. This is the day when Yilin is truly born and truly reborn. Yilin sat on the roof of the Yuwo County orphanage all night. Have you figured it out? The Tullman's mother hugged Xiao 11 and appeared behind Yilin. The two of them seemed to be alone in the world. They stood on the roof. Many grandfathers and old ladies were playing in the yard, but they did not notice the existence of Yilin and Xiao 11 at all. You lied to me. Yilin calmly told a fact. Xiao 11 shook her head. Actually, I didn't lie completely. I know, so I'm not very angry. What can you do when you're angry? Xiao 11 puffed up her chest. Phew, can't. Yilin hugged Xiao 11 from the arms of the Tool Mother. I admit that if you told me the truth in advance, I would not be able to accept it. But now, I feel that there are no surprises that can make me feel surprised. As long as you understand. Xiao 11 curled up in Yilin's arms and raised a finger. I promise, this is the last time. You sure? Certainly. Yilin is the administrator, and he knows the data on the administrator panel very well. So after thinking for a moment, Yilin guessed the reason why Xiao 11 said of course. It wasn't that she didn't want to, but that she couldn't. The remaining sources are no longer enough to conduct a closed loop. No, Xiao 11 shook her head. You will understand soon. We'll see. Yilin no longer complained about Xiao 11's riddles. Now, he was looking forward to how many surprises it would bring him when the answer to the riddle was revealed. Time passes by every second. Yilin hugged Xiao 11 and quietly looked at the peaceful scene in front of her. When the clock freezes at 12 o'clock. The world stood still for a moment. The smiles of the old people suddenly became distorted. No, it's not just everyone in front of me who is distorted, but also the world. Time, space, and all the principles that run the rules of the world are being distorted silently. From the ground, the dancing numbers 1 and 0 converge into thin rays of light, like counter-current rain, flowing straight from the ground to the sky. Coming. Xiao 11, who was quietly nestled in Yilin's arms, suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes were filled with light. She was ignoring all the manifestations of the world and observing the changes in the core rules. Countless streams of light gathered in one of the rooms in the orphanage. Gradually, all the streams of light converged into 2 human figures. The light of 2 human figures intertwined with each other. I am in you, and you are in me. They are like the 2 strands of the DNA double-stranded structure, inseparable. Yilin looked at this strange picture quietly. His mood is very complicated now. July 8, 2118. That was the day he was reborn. At this moment, Yilin was witnessing her birth with her own eyes. The stream of light dimmed, and when time started to move again, where the lights met, they precipitated into a boy and a girl. The girl opened her eyes before the boy. The moment she opened her eyes were emotionless and horribly white. But it was with these white eyes that when she was looking at the world, Yilin, as an administrator, felt cold all over her body, as if her own soul had been seen through, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. Overseer. Her eyes dash. Yilin gritted her teeth, blood squeezing out from between her teeth. He remembered everything. He thought of Xiaorugjiu's death, and at the end of that world, Ling Yi killed Chen Bei, Jian Nanchun, Huan Yang, and the others one by one with a single blow. Xiao 11 pressed Yilin's head hard. Don't worry. At this time, a figure appeared in the sky. It is the hope of adulthood. After the adult 11 appeared, her eyes looked in the direction of Yilin and Xiao 11. Luo Lixi and the young woman 11 looked at each other, as if forming some strange resonance, nodded at the same time, and said in unison. Please. Please. The young woman 11 fell from the sky, and the world in front of Yilin shook violently. The young woman 11 turned into a little bit of light and dissipated. The dissipated light entered the room and covered the eyes of the supervisor that had not yet been fully opened. Ling Yi's eyes turned from white to black, and then became lifeless again in the blink of an eye. Yilin calmed down and watched the scene that could be called the turning point of the world quietly. At the moment when Error and Monitor were born at the same time, the entire world was distorted. Like a precision-operated machine, the young man raised his head dully and made an emotionless voice. Then, like a psycho, he muttered to himself at a very fast speed, 101000101010101000. Yulin closed his eyes and simultaneously translated the string of codes that did not exist in his memory. After a moment, Yulin's eyes focused. The reborn Yulin used this method to compile the information of this world. Reconstruct the memory that he can understand. Beep beep beep. A series of principles emanate from the boy's body to the world, and he is connecting to the world in this way. The reason in the girl was only connected to the boy after her eyes were sealed by the young woman 11. The boy got out of bed. He takes a step forward. Fell to the ground. He was like a babbling baby. Under Yulin's gaze, he was turning into a person at a terrifying speed. It is now 12 o'clock sharp on July 8, 2118. I am 10. I am reborn. I survived. He is generating memories. He quickly mastered the language. He came to understand behavior. He establishes logic. He learned to think. He dealt with relationships. He blends into the world. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, Yulin wouldn't have believed that it would be so easy and simple to create a living person out of thin air. He is me. I am him. We are the same person. At this moment, Yulin witnessed the birth of herself with her own eyes. Many mysteries from the past were solved in an instant. I see. It turns out I was literally born out of thin air. No parents. No. It just comes out of the air. Yulin didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was strangely calm at this time, observing himself. I die with the conquering night. I went back in time. My purpose is to kill the night of the apocalypse. He ran out of the house. Grandpas and grandmas greeted the young man one after another. Xiaolin, didn't you say you were going to take a nap? Little Rinzi, are you hungry again after just eating? Go and deliver food to your Xiaoi. Stay away. They didn't notice at all that the boy appeared out of thin air. It's like boys and girls have grown up here since childhood. Yulin walked around, became familiar with the world, and returned to the room. The girl was leaning quietly by the window, staring at the world. Yi. Hello, Rin. Ling Yi smiled. It's good that you are alive, Yi. Yulin took a deep breath, twitched the corners of his mouth, and smiled dryly. What are you talking about? You haven't woken up yet. The girl obviously turned into a living person faster than the boy. She covered her mouth and secretly laughed. Believe me, one day, I will restore the sight to your eyes. Okay, I'll wait. Ling Yi smiled softly, her eyes were like crescent moons, curved and beautiful. When a girl interacts with a boy. At the same time. What are you doing? Yulin watched in surprise as Xiao 11 left his arms and floated into the air. Xiao 11 raised an index finger. On the tip of her small finger, a white card was slowly rotating. I'm betting on the future. Yulin recognized the card and frowned. Apocalypse Night Module. Xiao 11 smiled and shook her head. No, this is 11 Paradise. Finished. Xiaoxi flicked the card towards Yulin in the room. After doing all this, Xiao 11 returned to Yulin's arms. Her body became translucent, looming, as if she would disappear at any moment. Yulin hugged the cricket goddess distressedly. Are you going to die? Bah, it's early. Xiao 11 opened her eyes weakly. It was you who made me choose you. So, mistakes were born out of thin air. Yulin closed his eyes, trying to hide his current complicated mood. He is not human. From beginning to end, he was not a person born normally. He was a mistake. He is a mistake that was born out of thin air. A bug was born after countless artifact runs. Xiaoxi, I hope you can understand this truth for yourself. How many times? Yulin asked. 10. Xiao 11 said weakly, after countless artifact runs, You, the error, were born. But the supervisor discovered this loophole, and she used herself to fill it. In short, my vulnerability was compromised. I am the virus, and she is the antivirus software, right? You can understand it that way. So, Ling Yi and I are truly a match made in heaven. Sadly, yes. Xiao 11 tilted her head and thought about it. This way of understanding seemed to be correct. So, no matter what I do, in the end, Ling Yi will act as a supervisor to correct all the mistakes, kill me, and lead the world with bugs to the correct ending. My authority sequence is only C-002, while the supervisor's authority sequence is B. In this bet, as long as there are supervisors, we can never win. Xiao 11's side. In repeated attempts, I failed, and the world became a closed loop with no solution. In the 10th calculation, I summarized the reasons for the previous 9 failures. Xiao 11 said tiredly, for the first 9 times, I tried every means to make you evolve to the point where you are close to a god, but no matter which time, I failed miserably, and you were wiped out by the supervisor every time at the critical moment. So, for the 10th time, I gave up trying to control you and achieve you, but let you truly become a human being. Live happily as a human being. I made you fall in love with me. Now, it's because of race. After Xiao 11 finished speaking, she raised her index finger as usual. This is the only way. Yilin was silent for a moment, and under Xiao 11's expectant eyes, she said. The only way is, to kill the overseer. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1120. Although Xiao 11 sacrificed a trumpet to temporarily seal the supervisor's insight, in order to prevent the supervisor from noticing anything strange, Yilin and Xiao 11 returned to Qingcheng to discuss the matter in the long term. Yilin carefully thought through her thoughts. To put it simply, the overseer is invincible to a certain extent. She cannot be harmed in any way. Just like in the 3 worlds of reincarnation, the superdimensional Sakyamuni Buddha after Nirvana. Yilin picked his forehead and began to analyze based on his experiences over the years. When all the information came together, Yilin simply reasoned and came to a conclusion, except for me. Xiao 11 raised her index finger. She didn't expect Yilin to accept the cruel fact that she had no human qualities at all so easily. However, Yilin's growth made Xiao 11 feel relieved and said with a smile, that's right, and your numerology is closely connected to hers. You are like the 2 strands of the DNA helix double-stranded structure. Your destiny is inseparable. Let's not say that you can't easily establish the idea of killing her. You know, and the moment you can actually kill her, you will die too. This is her double insurance. Yilin closed his eyes and calmly recalled the moment when Yilin and Ling Yi were born. Their minds were closely intertwined. He believed Xiao 11's statement. But at the same time, Yilin also noticed something strange. Yilin was connected to the supervisor's numerology, and he was the administrator of GM, but now he had no connection with Ling Yi. After thinking for a moment, Yilin suddenly realized, it turns out that this is the real reason why you made me become Lin Yi, Tai Yi, and the administrator successively after you passed through the 3 lifestone reincarnation. The me now is not Yilin. That's right. Xiao 11's cheeks were sunken, and she sipped hard, saying while sipping, whoosh hoop hoop whoosh. For us, the supervisor is between existence and non-existence, so we have to kill him, kill her. Whoosh whoosh, only if you become the contradictory state of both Yilin and not Yilin can you have a chance. To briefly summarize. The monitor is between existence and absence. Only errors born together with the supervisor can cause harm to the supervisor. But mistake does not harm the supervisor as a cognition. And errors and monitors will live and die together. This is obviously a dead proposition with no theoretical solution. If you want to solve a dead proposition, you must take an unusual approach, for example, secretly changing concepts. Hearing this, Yilin couldn't help but rolled her eyes and complained, "I never expected that quantum mechanics would be the one that could ultimately save the world. Isn't the quantum mechanics imagined by you humans just metaphysics in science?" "I don't think there is any problem with it," Xiao 11 retorted while sipping her milk. "Ah, this makes sense," and Yilin is speechless for a moment. Indecision, quantum mechanics. Actually, can I understand the current situation as if you want to cheat, and then you are accidentally discovered, and the superiors take advantage of your loophole and lower the supervisor. She is like a referee. In this kind of bookmaker, you end up again and again. In a gambling game where a referee is arranged, if we want to overturn the table, we have to secretly kill the referee and replace him with one of ours, then everything will be fine." Xiao 11's expression seemed a little guilty. She glanced at Yilin at a 45-degree angle and whispered, "You can indeed understand this. I see." Yilin took a deep breath. "That day 3 years from now will be our only chance. By the way, I want to see your diary." As she said that, Yilin spread her hands towards Xiao 11 with a smile. "I think my beautiful, wise, proud, and invincible goddess 11 must have the habit of writing a diary, right?" Xiao 11 lowered her head. "Who's a serious person who writes a diary?" "Huh." Yilin was reluctant and stretched out her hand longer. "I'm a serious person." Xiao 11 looked at the administrator fearlessly. "Uh-huh." Xiao 11 was slumped. "You can watch it if you want." "Huh. Don't blame me if you're shocked." She popped up a super invincible file at Yilin. After playing it, Xiao 11 lay down on the pink sheets like a broken jar, rolling around. Voyage log. "Oh yeah. Open." Diddy. The moment she opened the file, Yilin's field of vision was filled with countless words. For a moment, Yilin had the illusion of bathing in the stars. For a time, the huge amount of data processing made Yilin's head buzz and hurt. As an administrator, he couldn't handle God's log at all. This order of magnitude is so huge that the administrator's brain instantly freezes and he is unable to think further. While enduring the pain in her brain, Yilin also felt deeply that although Xioxi didn't look like it, she was indeed a serious person. Fortunately, Voyage Log is relatively smart and has a user-friendly keyword filtering function. This is the so-called inertia, a mere god. Data filtering. Filter key entry data. Retrieval key target, Yilin. Retrieval successful. Target entry, 0. Yilin. Retrieval key target, error. Retrieval successful. Target entry, 10. Only 10? 10 golden legend folders appeared in front of Yilin's eyes. He temporarily pulled the folders aside, only 10 of them, so he could look at them later. Yilin thought for a moment and reselected the search condition, no enemy. Crash. There were thousands of files about Morendi, and Yilin started to click through them one by one. The files are all written from Xiao 11's first-person perspective. Ha! Are you serious enough not to keep a diary? But you write it? Yilin glanced at Xiao 11, who was lying on the bed sheet with her eyes squinting, whether because she was shy or pretending to be asleep, and smiled coldly. Test -7652 -6531 -1112. Test 7652. Morendi becomes the registrant of ID, 1. He is a pioneer. The first of many saints. I gave him invincible faith and took away his fear. He is invincible, I am very happy. They are coming. Morendi punched the agent of famine to death. Hey, he deserved it. That's the invincible protagonist that I carefully created. The remaining 3 suddenly became smarter. They actually joined forces. The remaining 3 are ready to fight against all enemies. Xiao Mo, don't be so naive, it's obviously a trap. Ah, wait, don't. No enemy was beaten, woo woo woo. If there is no enemy, die. Test -12765 -2123 -4321. Test 12765. I want to learn a lesson. One thing I discovered is that human beings are too upright and easily deceived. I tried to make Morendi a cunning person. But I discovered that once a human's core data is tampered with, he will no longer be invincible. He is no longer strong. I lost again. Test -32786 -9876 -2145. Test 32786. Morendi became the leader of mankind, and he inherited all their virtues. But there were traitors among us, and they began to seduce my people and become their dependents. No one is disdainful. The calculation results are so similar. I lost again. I lost to human nature. I lost again. I lost again. It doesn't matter, I still have a lot of sources, let's do it again. Come again. It was wrong from the beginning, and all this cannot be recorded. I don't have many sources left. Damn it, I have to try again. I will definitely win next time. You are taking advantage of the situation and cheating. How can I play, Xiaowu? I want to be with you. I am so tired. Lost again. I do not want to play. Yilin glanced at everything and looked up Goddess 11's navigation log. Thousands of logs seem to be saying the same thing. Ah no, the same word, miserable. Xiao 11 has tried to cultivate different people into protagonists, not just Moren enemies. She is like a cheating handicapped player who carefully plays a difficult game. She pushes the map bit by bit. When she is almost done, she records a save point and starts all over again. Yilin looked over it over and over again. After roughly knowing how Xiao 11 had been tortured over and over again in these countless artifact tests, Yilin solemnly opened the first 10 folders that were screened out. Click to open. R-1001 -2193-41233. During countless calculations, Zyle Garden made an error. A source code error that should have been impossible was born. He became a new vulnerability. I believe this is an opportunity. I will record his birth in the only true one. Archive. This is the 1001st time. I named him 01. I believe it will get better. He stood up and spoke. The way he thinks about problems is not like Homo sapiens, but more like an information life form. Oh, that's all right. After all, there are limits to human power, and I know this very well. This is my trump card. Hide it first. Continue to use Saint No Enemy. Acridine, the combination of wisdom and courage is really awesome. They teamed up and killed both of them. Wait, what is this? They noticed it and secretly replaced the knight. 01 is dead, Morendi is dead, everyone is dead. Ah, it's broken. Read file. R-1002 -3212 -4321. I don't believe it anymore. You can't win by cheating. I gave him the Gailai sword. I gave him almost unlimited spiritual energy. I gave him 36 SSS level skills. He draws out the Gailai sword. He draws out the Gailai sword. He draws out the Gailai sword. He continues to pull out. He is invincible. I think this wave is stable. Etc. And, they actually lowered the end. Why? It's justice that's causing trouble. Damn the scales. I lost again. R-1003 -9873 -1234. Be careful this time. Mere human nature is just a burden to 03. It's okay not to. Emotions, don't let them go. Skills, just be strong enough. He is no longer a human being. He is invincible. Draw the sword. Breaking sound. Hiss. Why? I don't understand why he has become a public enemy of mankind. It shouldn't be like this, I don't understand. I tried my best to save you, but you stabbed my people in the back. It's disgusting. I lost again. R-1004 3772 3211. He is born again. Something was wrong this time. It's the supervisor. Oh no, my actions attracted the supervisor. He and the supervisor fell in love. This shouldn't be the case. I lost completely. I never expected that I would lose to the love of Homo sapiens. I'm laughing so hard, woo woo hoo. R-1005 2323 5433. Come again. Hope, never give up. He has an extra lock, a lock called emotion. I found that I couldn't open this lock. The supervisor's intervention was very thorough. We already have no hope. R-1006 6432 1111. Destroy it, hurry up, I'm tired. R-1010 5422 3221. Another me told me that I gave 11 paradise to 10. Why? I have ignored him several times and allowed the error to develop on its own. I consume a lot of sources and read source data. It turns out that it was him who made me choose him. It turns out that it was my arbitrary intervention that prevented him from becoming a human being. This is the fundamental reason why I continue to fail. Yeah. If one day you can read my diary, I hope you can forgive me. In the cycle again and again, I only regard you as a tool for victory, making you become what I ideally want. But only this time, this last time, I hope you can have the right to choose. No matter what the outcome is for us, be it destruction or rebirth, but you were born on my ship in the form of an inhuman, and in the end, I hope you can become a human. I decided to record R-1010 in reality. Archive. You are 10. My child. Yilin. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1121. The gentleman in white clothes is gone. The last chapter is 3862 words, and the mask of pain is put on. Please support Kidian Reading for genuine reading. I can't stand it anymore, thank you Kowtow. Yuren finished reading the document. At this point, he finally knew his origin. He is 10, the 10th mistake born from countless artifacts and cycles with the real world. The first 9 digits are little 1 to little 9. There were 9 of them before. But the first 9 mistakes all ended in failure. Yilin closed the folder silently. He looked at Xiao 11 who was sleeping soundly on the large quilt, and gently covered her with the quilt. Rest in peace, my goddess. Bah, I haven't backtracked yet. As if she heard Yilin's rebellious words, the goddess curled up in bed mumbled and complained, as if talking in her sleep. Yilin ruffled Xiao 11's hair. I don't know when he started, but he gradually fell in love with killing goddesses. Not everyone has this opportunity. This is a goddess. A mere god. Now, it's time to deal with the subsequent troubles. Yilin sighed softly and left here. At the moment when Yilin and Ling Yi were born, the real world was distorted again. Molly was immersed in the laboratory, clicking randomly on the computer. She is drafting a job posting. Let's discuss it with him. Molly hesitated about what conditions would be appropriate. This kind of thing was indeed beyond Molly's expertise. She casually picked up the mobile phone on the table, refreshed the screen, and prepared to input a series of numbers skillfully. But at this moment, Molly was shaken suddenly and her phone fell to the ground. Her entire face was filled with confusion and confusion. Who was I looking for just now? Grandfather? Wrong. Grandpa doesn't understand this. Who do I want to find? I froze at the table for a long time. Molly hurriedly lay down under the table, looking for the mobile phone that had fallen under the table. With a simple movement, she picked it up several times before finally picking it up. Woo 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 woo. The phone screen is shattered. Really intolerant of falling. Why are you broken? Molly stared blankly at the broken glass screen of her mobile phone. She was dumbfounded for several minutes, then suddenly she hugged her legs and burst into tears. The miner's collapse occurred in an instant, and the reason could not be explained. Who dares to bully my good granddaughter? Amorendi broke the glass with one punch and fell from the sky, hearing the sound. But when Amorendi descended here like a magic weapon descending from heaven, the scene left him a bit dumbfounded. According to his experience, assuming that the thief who bullied his good granddaughter had not had time to escape, then based on the crime scene, it should be that the mobile phone bullied his granddaughter. What's wrong, Meng? Who bullied you? Amorendi scratched his head and squatted in front of Molly. Molly threw herself into Amorendi's arms. Grandpa, I don't know why. It's so strange, I seem to have forgotten something. It's so uncomfortable. Also, the screen of my phone is broken. Weird, it's obviously worthless. At the same time, Yulin seemed to be standing at the center of the world, feeling the changes in the world after being distorted. My sense of existence is being taken away by urine. No, it should be that at the same time as the distortion occurs, the navigator is rapidly making a certain degree of correction to the real-world line, avoiding the rules within the ship. Stuck in the most basic logical errors. Distortion / correction / a delicate balance was struck. This is just like the reason why Miriam cannot show her true face in front of me. The core logical rules cannot be broken, otherwise, real time will fall into complete chaos. The core rules within the ship are the foundation for the operation of a ship. Above all, even the administrator cannot tamper with it, otherwise it will cause the timeline to collapse. According to the principle of uniqueness of real individuals, no two eyes with identical core data can appear at the same point in time. This is what Xiao 11 said, the only way. While Yilin existed, my sense of existence was taken away by Yilin. Now I am neither Yilin, but still Yilin. I can only survive here as an administrator. Yilin's role as administrator is not just a matter of a day or two. After the birth of Yilin, the distortion and revision of the rules within the ship coexisted. Two completely different directions stabilized the world in a strange balance. Status. All memories about GM will be diluted, and the memories of all people who have had contact with GM but will interact with urine in the future will be revised to a certain extent. Of course, the impact of this correction is not all negative. The current Yulin, should be said to be an administrator, will become a real ghost, hidden in the cracks of history. If I'm not wrong, Molly should have forgotten about me. Yulin came into contact with Molly in advance in the real world, but this contact will definitely be modified to some extent after the birth of Yulin. The simplest way is to remove the traces of his own existence wiped from Molly's memory. July 8, 2118. Night. Yulin received a call from Amorendi. Amorendi rarely uses his mobile phone. Once he does, it means something is wrong. Brother, come here quickly. Something happened here. Yulin smiled and arrived at Mo's house. There is no enemy in the courtyard, waiting for a long time. When Yulin stepped out of the circle of light and appeared in the yard, Amorendi rubbed his eyes vigorously with a depressed expression. I'm really blind, my face is all blurry. Hearing this, Yulin sat down. When he came face to face with Amorenren, do you still remember me? When Amorendi heard this, his movements of rubbing his eyes suddenly stopped. He figured something was wrong and hurriedly asked, "Brother, is something wrong?" "Yes, it's quite big." Yulin smiled slightly and nodded. "Do you still remember what I told you before, that I come from the future?" "I remember." Morendi nodded, "but..." Morendi hesitated, but Yulin took the initiative to pick up what Morendi had not said. "But when you helped me check those 3 names last time, you also used the face recognition database to investigate. In this world, there is no I anywhere." Hey, as expected of you, brother, I was discovered by you." Morendi smiled and showed an expression of "as expected of you." But this is actually what Yulin really wants to say. He is indeed your Lao Mo, who can even resist the distortion and correction balance of the world. He is indeed Xiao 11, who has designated the only male among countless artifacts. Protagonist old man. When Molly was crying, Morendi also noticed something was wrong. It's not that Molly is really sad because of losing something. Morendi can understand that feeling. When the world was distorted and corrected at the same time, Morendi clearly felt that a piece of his memory had been erased. He could barely recall a person like Brother G, but many memories became blurred, and he could not even remember it. Remembering Yulin's appearance and voice. However, Morendi never relies on superficial features such as appearance and voice to identify people. What he remembers is the smell of a strong person. After pondering for a moment, Morendi hammered his head, shook it hard, and became more awake. He opened his mouth and asked, "Has it started?" Yulin calmly shook his head, "There's no rush." Oh, Morendi opened his clenched fists. Even though he has begun to age now, he still has the ambition to travel thousands of miles. This sudden incident made his blood boil and wasted. Lots of expressions. After telling Morendi to continue waiting quietly and doing whatever he was supposed to do, Yulin left Mo's house. Not long after, a small plane made of paper flew over, flying slowly. Yulin's eyes narrowed, and she stretched out her hand towards the paper airplane and took it down. There was an encrypted message between the magicians hidden inside. After Yulin quickly read the secret message in the paper airplane, he burned it with a snap of his fingers and smiled slightly. Although he does not trust the old vampire Merlin, Yulin believes that this is part of history. From the moment Yurin is born, everything will proceed according to the trajectory of history until that day. At the same time, around the Tower of War, the blood-colored thick fog formed a forbidden area that is difficult for humans to set foot on, the red mist zone. Once humans inhale the blood-colored mist, they will produce all kinds of weird hallucinations. It seems to contain stimulant ingredients. Once humans stay in the red mist zone for a long time, their eyes will be red and they will have a strong desire to attack and go crazy. Attack those around you. It may even bite. Myrian was staying alone under the Tower of War at this time, bathing in the red mist, as if she had returned to her own home. Ah, so hungry. Just as she wiggled her nose from time to time, thinking about the scene where the cook would suddenly appear in front of her with hot, fragrant, and glowing food, Myrian suddenly pulled out the black sword. In the blood-red mist, a smiling white-haired man slowly walked out. I saw that he was wearing a spotless white magician's robe, which was inlaid with exquisite lace. Under the man's robe, there was a dark and close-fitting lining. The man wore a pair of thick round-toed boots. Myrian frowned. Although she thought the white-haired man's power could not pose a threat to her, he felt like the wind blowing from the grassland, blowing and killing Myrian. The intention was diluted. "Hello, I am Merlin." The great sage from the wandering sea. The white-haired man saluted Miriam from a distance. While showing his identity, he smiled and raised the big bag he was carrying in his right hand. "Hey, are you the legendary Miriam Artoria X? You were entrusted by a certain guy to deliver a meal, which contains special cured ham." As he spoke, his smile became a little helpless, and he pointed hard at his left eye with his left hand. Myrian then noticed that the man who called himself Merlin had a black bruise on his left eye socket, with blood oozing around the bruise, as if he had just been beaten up by a brutal gangster not long ago. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1122. Except for Mo Rendi, the special team did not notice anything obviously wrong. Originally, the GM's presence was not strong. They could still vaguely remember that there was a special consultant named GM in the team, but they also forgot what he looked like. Under the influence of the correction, everyone took it for granted that this weirdness was explained by the GM's special ability. They have reasonable doubt that GM is the first apostle. At least that's how they misunderstand it now. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yilin devoted herself to retreat and spent 2 months on the top of the snow-capped mountains to understand the true meaning of sense of presence. Water down my existence from human memory. 2 months later, Yilin stepped out of the Everest cave. He looked back at the residence behind him and subconsciously rubbed the Xiaoshui heart on his chest, feeling a touch of sadness in his heart. Time is a terrible force. It can subtly affect everything, including memory. Yilin squinted her eyes and looked directly at the sun. The sun was a bit dazzling. Yilin waved her hand towards the sky, and in an instant, the brightness of the sun dimmed a bit. It's nothing more than a huge source of light and heat. Yilin nodded to express satisfaction with the right lighting. He drew a circle with his right hand, drew a portal, and stepped into it. As Yilin moves, the surface of his body is covered with a layer of looming light. Every time he takes a step, there is a stream of data intertwined with 1 and 0 behind him, which turns into dust and dissipates in the air. In the snow. At this time, Yilin had moved into Qingcheng, entered Qingcheng High School, bought a bunch of dummies, and began to work silently to kill Henry Zhang. Every time Yilin thinks of this matter, she can't help but mourn for a few seconds for Xiao Yang. The meaning of his existence is like an indispensable gear in the historical process. Xiao Yang has become a part of history. No matter how many times it is cycled, his existence is meaningless, but it is Xiao Yang's death that can advance history. How ironic. No, Henry Zhang is no longer a simple person, but a blessing, a totem, and a concept. Henry Zhang deserves to be sublimated. Thank you for your hard work, old classmate. In the old apartment, Yilin was meticulously practicing cutting her throat. He is like a tireless robot, counting silently again and again, practicing only 50 times a day, not once more, not once less. Yilin opened the diary and started recording. When he was writing an observation diary for himself, Xiao 11 appeared behind him and yawned loudly, "Hug. Hug her every day, lift her up again." Our goddess lay back in her mother's arms contentedly. How do you feel when you look at your former self? Mood, Yilin thought for a moment, and then asked in confusion, is it important? Xiao 11 opened her pink mouth into a round O shape, stayed for a moment, and then shook her head, it's not important. Yilin continued to lower his head and write in his diary. While writing, Yilin remembered something. How much of your strength has you recovered now? 15.4%. Xiao 11 accurately reported a number, but I can't interfere. I know, I'm just asking. Yilin nodded calmly. He didn't have any hope for Xiao 11. If Xiao 11 could end the game at will, the boss would definitely overturn the table. This was obviously inconsistent with the history that followed. Over the years, Yilin has constantly updated his information and tried to deduce a bright future based on the history he knew, but he found helplessly that he could not deduce it because this closed loop was not broken for a day, and the correction and distortion will never stop interfering with the world. Xiao 11 looked at Yilin, who was becoming more and more calm. She bit her lip. Although she was happy to see this result, when Yilin really started to walk towards that path, Xiao 11 couldn't help but secretly feel sorry for Yilin. Ren felt distressed. He was carrying too many things and it was too heavy. but Xiao 11 shook her head and quickly put away the unnecessary thoughts. The nature of God is closely related to the degree of recovery of strength. The current Zioxy's nature is more immature and is retrogressing, and cannot be compared with the young wife 11 back then. By the way, I'm curious, what kind of existence is Merlin? Yilin was writing, thinking of the great sage Merlin wandering around the sea, and asked casually. Since Xiao 11 sealed the supervisor's eye of insight, she has fallen into an unprecedented state of weakness. She only dozes off and asks for a hug. It's rare that Xiao 11 wakes up today. If Yilin has any questions, she quickly asks. I found no record of Merlin in your navigation log. Of course, I deleted it, Xiao 11 said confidently. Huh? But they are still there. You should know what a saint is after reading my logbook. There are too many data, I didn't have time to interpret them one by one. But I can roughly understand that a saint is similar to an unrivaled person. In a certain artifact, a saint is a person who is enough to form a key support point, which can also be understood as the world protagonist. Is Merlin the one? Yes, and no. Xiao 11 spread her hands. The guy named Merlin, in the early settings, was a creature of God. I spent a lot of resources to call the sealed Uruk with the Atlantis technology. I secretly went next door and borrowed a little bit of ancient vampire blood to create a saint, but unfortunately, it turned out to be useless. Yilin narrowed her eyes. Borrow it? Xiao 11 straightened her chest and said confidently, borrow it? But why did you keep it? That took a lot of resources to create, so don't waste it. Understood. Thesha von Einsborn, Merlin, Koto Mine Justice, they will jointly create your death. Zioxy started to feel sleepy as she spoke. You gradually begin to understand, administrator's duties. But Zioxy closed her eyes. But what? Well, it's nothing. Xiao 11 shook her head. Are you doing your old habits again? No, really not. Xiao 11 shook her head vigorously. Of course, Yilin was used to it. He wasn't really angry. He just complained. He smiled slightly. Progress always comes with sacrifices, necessary sacrifices. Xiao 11, for victory. Yilin, for victory. Yilin stayed away from the special group, away from Emorendi, away from Mali, and away from the capital. He knew very well that the seemingly peaceful world at the moment was actually full of undercurrents. Connor on the other side of the sea. The leader Gu Tianqing lurks in the darkness. Miriam of the West. There is also Lao He, the famine knight who hides in darkness in the desolate land. Yilin can observe their actions from the side through her own administrator skills. All they are doing now is just helplessly following the trajectory of history, trying to play their destined role in this closed loop. The world is a closed loop. He will become an administrator and secretly interfere with Yilin. Yilin will follow the footsteps of the past and go to death, becoming the struggling undead in hell, crawling through the mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and returning again. Then, become an administrator again. No matter how this closed loop is born, the moment it becomes a closed loop, it means that there is no hope here. Xiao 11 said that this time, what was different from the other 9 times was that she made Yilin fall in love with a woman named Xiarugjiu. Will this seemingly insignificant change break this closed loop of despair? Yilin closed her eyes and took in the world. There seemed to be a fire hidden in his heart, a silent anger, and he longed to burn everything out, burn them out, them. Yes, Xiarugjiu. 3 years later. July 8, 2121. That day, it rained heavily. In the heavy rain, Yilin put on a raincoat, held a dagger, and sneaked into Henry Zhang's home. Henry Zhang was summoned and came out alive from the trial of the preparatory apostle. I spent 832 days becoming good friends with you in the eyes of my classmates. Yilin looked at the corpse lying in front of him and said the numbers in his memory in a serious manner. The administrator Yilin is on the side, silently observing myself many years ago. He finally understood that the obsessive-compulsive disorder he had when he was sensitive to numbers was not a disease. Iron was born from the data of countless operations in Zyle Garden. At the moment of his birth, the world was distorted and corrected. Now Uran is like a machine that has just gradually become a machine. Human, he has distorted memories, but he has no human nature. Yilin touched her chin and fell into deep thought. When did I start to gradually become like a human being? Yilin took away the apostle's ID and disappeared, entering the other world. July 8, 2121. I became the apostle. ID, 1010. This seems to be an arranged number. I watched myself stabbing Henry Zhang again, and my heart stopped. Maybe the scene is too familiar, I don't feel anything at all. In the past 3 years, I have been observing me. Zioxy often sleeps, and every time she wakes up, she hesitates to speak. I know what she's worried about. From her voyage log, I can tell that she wanted me to be a real person. But maybe, in the end, I will live up to her expectations. Because, I know one thing very well. In the process of continuously building the infinite throne, my divine nature awakened. Sorry. My goddess, Nozomi. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1123. It is well known that Z1 can compress the time ratio between the other world and reality. As an administrator, he observes the background data from time to time. He knows very well that compressing the time in the other world into 1 minute consumes more resources than equal compression. But there is no doubt that this is the most cost-effective way of plundering at present. Who makes them poor now? Yilin returned from the other world, and the core surface of 11 Paradise was covered with a layer of skin of Apocalypse Night module and began to officially operate. Even the superior gods and masters would never have expected that the 11 Paradise they tried their best to seize was no longer with Xiao 11. Yilin recalled his experience in Generation of Gods. No wonder he already had worry-free 11 Paradise in his body at that time. That was because Xiao 11 had already integrated the core of 11 Paradise with Apocalypse even earlier. Night module, taking advantage of the opportunity of correction and distortion to confuse the vision, he secretly placed it on himself. Everything clicked. Molly got a phone call. It was a call from the dedicated line. Strange, invaded. Molly was very puzzled. Except for her grandfather and a few familiar friends in the laboratory, no one else knew the encryption method of her number. Answer. Male. Molly's face dropped subconsciously. Sure enough, it was hacked. From the original score. Dare you hack me, Molly? It is the mercy of my Miss Mo to give you a vigorous social death. Hello? Who's there? Miss Mo tried hard to keep her voice sweet. Play the long game to catch the big fish. In this day and age, you still don't know me. An unexplained explosion occurred in the asylum for the mentally ill in a closed city next door. 2 inmates escaped. The numbers are 9,527, 9,528. When Yilin heard the news, she counted it with her fingers and smiled happily. Explode. Just explode. Yilin estimated that Lao Pan must have used his face to twist the joystick, correct the password, and blew up the shelter. He took the opportunity to check out Lao Pan's journey from Fengcheng to Qingcheng. When he escaped, an old medical staff happened to have a cerebral hemorrhage and fell in front of Lao Pan. Lao Pan dialed 120 and took the old doctor's call. I took off my clothes and changed them for myself. Then the face-scanning system of the on-duty underground network that closed the city to Qingcheng had a rare malfunction and identified Lao Pan and the two as two other people. They actually took the underground network to Qingcheng so arrogantly. In short, the process of Pan Zhenji's arrival was full of coincidences. Immediately afterwards, Xiao 11 just woke up and was taken to the supermarket by her tool mother. This is the first encounter between Yuren and Goddess. Afterwards, Yilin threw Xiao 11 to the 30th floor and lifted her up high. When it fell, Yilin caught it. By the way, what's the deep meaning of why you came here on purpose? Isn't this history? Xiao 11 seemed to be unsatisfied with the lift high of the 30-story building. My memory told me so. I know it's history, but it always feels weird to me. Xiao 11 poked the administrator's face curiously. Are you jealous? Oh. Xiao 11 suddenly realized, I understand, this is what you humans call a Turan. You are awesome to yourself. Roll. Actually, after raising her head happily again, Xiao 11 finally revealed the reason for contact with Yilin. I must re-establish contact with the anchor point, and by the way, hide you. Don't forget, monitor, although the eyes of the monitor are sealed, you and yourself are essentially the same person, and your core data is consistent. Sooner or later, the monitor will be aware of your existence. The disordered hunters outside the final defense. I'm trying to figure out how to break through my core. I can't hold on here much longer. Yilin understood. But he always felt that Xiao 11 seemed to have some knowledge that he shouldn't have. Fast forward to Yilin storming into the Xiao family. Administrator Yilin looks on with a cold eye at all this history. Is the trial I am going through now, Kimiyama? Long-standing memories were reawakened by the actions of Yilin. Yilin gently rubbed Xiaoshue's heart with her right hand, feeling a trace of nostalgia inexplicably. Soon, Yilin returned, rescued a young man whose tongue was cut off, and made him Ling Win. Yilin in 2121, driven by history, is looking for a way to restore light to Ling Yiyi. Ling Win. The administrator frowned and opened the navigation log with an immeasurable amount of data again. This log is really impossible to read without searching. There is so much data, it's as vast as the sea. Search, Ling Win. Scope narrowed, registrants. Search results, 0. In other words, in countless artifacts and thousands of real cycles, there has never been a registrant named Ling Win. Yilin, who was confused, took the time to look for Xiao 11 again. After a simple explanation, Yilin understood. So, mistakes are viruses that are full of uncertainty and will spawn more mistakes. Yilin refreshed her positioning again. It turns out that not being a human being has its advantages, so that's it. After the administrator got the answer he wanted, the goddess didn't even have time to hug her, she just ran away, coming and going in a hurry. Xiao 11, who was sitting on the bed, stared blankly at Yilin disappearing into the circle. Her little hand that had just reached halfway froze in the air. She felt like she had been abandoned and was about to cry without tears. Why is he becoming more and more indifferent? It's fun. Xiao 11's mother sat next to her good daughter, holding Xiao 11's little head and comforting her softly. Ah la la, don't be unhappy, Xiao 11, the administrator is very busy. This is the truth. Xiao 11 sipped her white fingers depressedly. Then I'll go and play with 10 no 2. Anyway, this is also part of history, don't you think so, Mom? Yes, my Xioxi. Ga ga go. Xioxi woke up from her sleep and was full of energy. Now that the administrator is getting less and more fun, she went to find number 10 to have some fun. It's the same anyway. They are the same entity. 1 month later. The bodies of his daughter and wife have been sent away. Ling Win sat in the empty room, his eyes empty, like a doll that had lost its soul. He lost everything. There was only boundless hatred left in my heart. The hatred of killing your wife and the hatred of killing your daughter. Your empty body is only filled with these two reasons. Yilin came here, you are no longer the person you used to be. You should not appear here, otherwise, it would disrupt the workings of the world. Ling Wen tightened his grip on the dagger. In the darkness, he was like a cheetah waiting for an opportunity. Yilin smiled slightly. Becoming another person is simpler than imagined, but it is not that easy either. Ling Wen, do you want to know your future? Ling Wen opened his mouth. The face of the man who suddenly appeared in front of him could not be seen clearly. His face seemed to be covered with a layer of fog, making it mysterious and mysterious. As soon as he tightened his grip on the knife, he found that with the man's laughter, the trace of hostility he had just worked hard to condense in his heart was instantly wiped out in the man's laughter, as if it was wiped out. The man's voice was bewitching. Do you want to know your future? Yilin stood in front of Ling Wen. After Ling Wen was silent, he nodded vigorously. It's very simple. Yilin stretched out her finger and pointed at Ling Wen's forehead. He simply used the administrator background of 11 Paradise to deduce Ling Wen's trial performance in the next few missions, and combined it with his own logic to calculate his subsequent actions. You went through 3 trials and advanced to level 3. You found shadow number 34. You took revenge recklessly and died after being defeated. You chose to be patient and wanted to wipe out the White Shadow Club in one fell swoop, but because you tolerated it for too long, you died in the trial. You killed shadow number 27 and floated away. Then you went to find shadow number 10, and you were pressed into the toilet and drowned alive. You contacted many forces and decided to use the power of others to take revenge. However, a year later, you, the Dragon King, returned, and the members of the White Shadow Club had long since disappeared. Hiding in the sea of people in extreme anger, you committed suicide by hitting the wall. Deduction after deduction, the future emerged one after another before Ling Wen's eyes. The process was bizarre, but the result was surprisingly consistent. He died before he left the battlefield. Ha ha ha. Ling Wen let out a hoarse growl. Yilin lowered his head, with smiles in his eyes, and took out another mask. This is the Bai mask that Lao Pan left behind when he was caught by Mo Ren enemy. Bai is dead. Unfortunately, you can't take revenge on Bai, but the shadow under his banner, I can help you. Ling Wen looked at the man in front of him in surprise, whose appearance he couldn't see clearly, and then he lowered his head deeply. You seem to want to ask, why? It's very simple. Yilin raised an index finger. The world is unfair. Not everyone will be favored by the world. Some people deserve to die, but they live a happy life. Those who do not deserve to die are destined not to survive tomorrow. It is not you who are wrong, but the world. And I, coincidentally, am also technically an avenger. But the object of my revenge is higher than you think. While I'm helping you, I'm also helping myself. Ling Wen gritted his teeth, as if a blazing fire was burning in his chest. What you just saw was not an illusion. I think you know it in your heart. He cannot fulfill your wish, Yilin said with regret. The him in his mouth refers to Yilin herself. Ling Wen knelt down again. I know very well what you are thinking. You compromised for a moment. When you become stronger, you will naturally be able to take revenge. Maybe in the end, you may turn around and chop me. Unfortunately, you are chatting with the devil now. If you want your wish to come true, you can only make a deal with the real devil. Ling Wen pressed his head on the floor. Congratulations, we have happily reached a consensus. Yilin clapped. He took out a gray ball of light from the database of 11 Paradise and stuffed it into Ling Wen's body. From today onwards, your action code name is Extinction Factor. The administrator touched his chin and began to name, Juju Zi for short. Juju Zi. Number 1? Forget it, it seems to be Extinction Factor. Sounds good. Ling Wen looked confused and stunned. He couldn't understand why this man could say such strange words in a confident tone. But immediately after, Ling Wen's eyes showed uncontrollable ecstasy. That ball of gray light turned out to be a skill gift pack. Among them, the skill Silent Declaration has reached S level. Ling Wen was completely convinced and knelt firmly. Yilin nodded with satisfaction and continued, at a specific time and at a specific place, you will give the amulet you obtained from the previous trial to a woman named Ling Yi. Just leave a message saying, it's a gift from Yilin. That's right. Mistakes will lead to more mistakes. Since the overseer has no more contact with the world than his mistakes. Then it's up to him, the administrator, to create new connections. From now on, you can delete Yilin as a friend. Well, sorry. Then set do not disturb first. Anyway, you don't have to mess with him anymore. You are mine now. Betrayal. Just betrayal. What the hell, and you call this choice? Life is full of choices, isn't it? The sexy administrator online guided Ling Wen to trick himself. From now on, you will be my housekeeper, responsible for cleaning, external liaison. You can do things that are inconvenient for me to do. You can do things that I am too lazy to do. Understood? Butler. Ling Wen used a knife to cut more than a dozen holes in Bai's mask and put on the mask. From today on, he became this man's butler. Linked chapters 15, 25, and 169 respectively. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1124. What kind of character is Ling Wen? What thoughts does Ling Wen have? Will he betray? He is loyal or not? These are not within the scope of Yilin's consideration. It doesn't matter. When Yilin stood higher and higher, standing in a position that made Yilin feel lonely and cold, he felt more and more that human intrigues and speculations were not worth mentioning. He used to be disdainful, but now Yilin is indifferent. His current mentality was like overlooking a group of ants. No matter what posture they used in their nest, they could not bring fun or attract attention to Yilin. Blade, shadow attack, multiple phantoms, air strengthening, silent declaration. The administrator's authority was much greater than Yilin imagined. He gave Ling Wen a few insignificant skills. The level of the skills was not high. The focus was on matching. The matching skills would have terrible effects. At this point, Ling Wen deeply understood how terrifying the person in front of him was. He can actually give skills to apostles at will. He can know what props he has in his storage space. He is omniscient and omnipotent, just like God. Remember, this is a deal. Yilin disappeared in front of Ling Wen. An insignificant child has fallen. Amorendi gets to know Yilin again. Due to the interference of distortion and correction, Lao Mo did not realize for the time being that Yilin was an old friend. After all, the former Yi Apostle Rin and the current Yi Administrator Rin were quite different. Molly also became more and more familiar with Yi Apostle Rin. Well, I hope Lao Mo won't be angry. Yilin rubbed her chin in confusion. Later, Lao Mo always found reasons to beat me up. Is it because of these reasons? My old friend stole my sweet granddaughter or something? Huh, granddaughter control is really scary. Yilin silently wrote a sentence in her diary. Amorendi finally turned into something he hated. After writing, Yilin felt much better. After closing the diary, he flicked his fingers, and a stream of light appeared in front of him, forming a huge chessboard. Yilin's chessboard is this world. Pangenji. Ling Wen. There is no enemy. Million. Gu Tianqing. Merlin. Wandering Sea. Clock Tower. Connor. Old Hay. Dawn Cult. Evangelical Meeting. Z5 Council. Li Kai. Chess pieces of varying sizes landed on the empty chessboard. There is always a limit to the power of every chess piece. But what Yilin wants is not to take away some of the chess pieces, but, to win this game. Heaven and earth are the bureau, and the world is the sun. Yulin thought for a moment and dropped a few more chess pieces. Xiang family, Lu family. Yulin's eyes swept over the chessboard. Evangelical meeting. Yulin sorts out the past. If he remembers correctly, in the history he has experienced, the only time he was closest to the gospel meeting was that of Henry Zhang. Henry Zhang? By the way, after that incident, Henry Zhang's body was sent away by his father. Where was it sent? Yulin acts decisively and does whatever she thinks of. Stepping through the portal, Yulin stepped out from behind the aperture, and the administrator came to Ching Cheng again. Beep beep beep. As soon as he arrived, the boss's call came to his ears. She wanted a hug. No time, I'm busy. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much. After the administrator ruthlessly rejected her request for a hug, Zioxy angrily twisted around on the pink sheets. The administrator ruthlessly rejected her boss's excessive demands, and Yulin came to Ching Cheng police station. Su Xiong was still clocking into work, and he started drinking wolfberry tea to nourish his kidneys. Gu Xinan was punching sandbags to vent his anger because he lost Henry Zhang's case. By the way, Gu Xinan. Only then did Yulin realize that when the world was divided into two lines, administrator and Yulin, light and dark, running at the same time, he could see more truth from his own perspective. In the past, he was ignorant and almost drowned in a sea of riddles. It was quite miserable. Yulin looked at Gu Xinan from a distance and searched for the records in the voyage log. He found that there were many existences similar to Gu Xinan in every corner of the world. And people like them are also one of the many loopholes left by Xiao 11. If beings such as Morendi and Merlin who are born with extraordinary qualifications are positioned as saints in the ship, then people like Gu Xinan are positioned as prophet. In order to make the future survive, Xiao 11 tried her best to create loopholes. No, all the loopholes created have been hacked. Saints, prophets, all kinds of people are needed in the world. While lamenting her ignorance at the time, Yulin looked at the morgue where Xiao Yang's body was kept not long ago. Although the cryo container was removed, some clues were still left. What the police can't see, the administrator can. Circles formed in the depths of Yulin's pupils, and thin reasons stretched from here to the distance. Yulin grabbed a bunch. After feeling it for a moment, she was a little surprised. It was divided into two bunches, one for the north and one for overseas. Yulin ignored the bunch in the north for the time being. He could vaguely guess who was causing the evil. But that beam overseas, Yulin closed his eyes, and his vision slipped into darkness. At the end of the darkness, there was a beam of silver light. After pushing aside the darkness, Yulin saw a factory at the end of the road. On a seat made of scrap iron, a pair of silver armor stood quietly. After Yulin's perception crossed the Pacific Ocean and entered the factory, the silver armor trembled slightly, and a dim light lit up inside the helmet. It's Connor. Yulin frowned and quickly withdrew from the sensing line of sight before the other party noticed. I see. Since the Gospel Society is connected to Connor, Yulin cannot let go of this clue. He followed the reason and came to the capital again. On the outskirts of the capital, in the mountains, inside an abandoned military facility, it was transformed into a secret military factory, and Xiao Yang's body was transported here. You are really a blessed boy, Henry Zhang. After several lifetimes, Yulin finally found the branch of the Evangelical Association. Unexpectedly, it was right under Morendi's nose. This was all thanks to Henry Zhang. Even though he died again and again, the contributions he made were like spring rain, moistening things silently and lasting forever. Yulin squatted here for several days, observing secretly. It turns out that Connor is secretly building an army of steel. Henry Zhang's corpse was just a primer. In the military factory, there were various materials suitable for transformation. Yulin learned through the administrator's background that a large part of these materials were former apostles. After they caused the abnormal incident, part of the corpses recovered by the special team were transported here. Yulin might have felt very angry about this in the past, but now, there is no special feeling. Once the apostle dies, he is dead and cannot be resurrected. This kind of recycling method is a kind of environmental protection. But if I don't do something for you, it will make my administrator look easy to bully, right? Connor. Yulin rolled out the world map and inserted a chess piece in the corresponding position, marking it, Arms Factory. Mark for now. Yulin left quietly. There are restless people in the special group. Yulin had known about this for a long time, so it wasn't surprising. When the administrator Yulin returned to Qingcheng again. Another Yulin just set off, heading to the Grey Fog area with Molly. Yulin, who had experienced this period of history in advance, knew that Molly's trip was a near miss, so he was too lazy to follow her secretly. He returned to Qingcheng and gave Xiao 11 a long-awaited hug and after giving the report by the way, he asked casually. Besides Saint and Prophet, what other weird settings have you made before? Yes, Xiao 11 started counting with her fingers, Pioneer, Son of the World, Hunter, Scavenger, Rich Man, Lost One, Frustrated Brother, Good Brother, Comedian, Rebel. Xiao 11 mentioned a dozen common ones in one breath, and Yulin took the seats one by one in the voyage log. He gradually discovered that to manage a world, or rather to being a captain is not as simple as he imagined. The elements that make up the world need to be rich and colorful so that it doesn't seem boring. Speaking of, an exclamation mark suddenly popped up on Xiao 11's forehead. Yulin was stunned. The exclamation mark actually popped up. He was about to reach out and touch it, but Xiao 11 slapped Yulin's evil hand away. Don't make trouble, by the way, I almost forgot. You may not know that in the past, you always had a mascot by your side. Mascot? Yulin asked tentatively, Li Chang'e? Panzhenji. They are, quite auspicious. No, Li Chang'e is a comedian and Panzhenji is a son of the world. It's necessary. Xiao 11 chuckled, corrected Yulin's statement, and slid her finger in front of Yulin to draw a line. Dog shape. This. Here, map. Xiao 11 asked Yulin to open the chessboard map, and she gently poked a small dot on the map. The mascot is dying. Didn't you tell me earlier? Yulin looked at the colorful chessboard map and saw a dog released by Xiao 11. Needless to say, it must be Wang Er. Yulin didn't expect Wang Er to be the mascot in Xiao 11's setting. However, looking back on Wang Er's attitude of helping to take care of the baby, it is quite consistent with the setting of mascot, so old and lucky. I'm going to find Wang Er. Yulin smiled knowingly, stepped into the circle of light, and teleported to the capital.